After a quick Google image search, I found one of the most important pieces of information that literally have economists worried. It's a graph with two lines, one for the G7 countries' GDP and the other one for the BRICS countries' GDP. GDP stands for Gross Domestic Product. It is a measure of the total value of goods and services produced within a country's borders over a specified period of time, typically a year. GDP is used as a key indicator of a country's economic health and is often used to compare the economic performance of different countries. The G7 countries are a group of 7 advanced economies that meet annually to discuss various economic, political, and security issues. The members of the G7 are Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, United Kingdom and the United States. The European Union is also represented in the G7 meetings. These countries represent some of the largest and most developed economies in the world. BRICS is an acronym that stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. These countries are often grouped together because of their large and fast-growing economies, as well as their increasing influence on global economic and political affairs. The term was first coined in 2001 by a former Goldman Sachs economist who predicted that these countries would be the world's largest economies by 2050. Since then, the BRICS nations have established a formal grouping known as the BRICS Forum, which has held annual summits since 2009 to discuss issues of mutual concern and cooperation. Now, this brings me to my point, why I searched the G7, BRICS GDP metric. Right now, the G7 GDP is crossing further under the BRICS GDP with a predicted downward trajectory as the BRICS GDP gets larger and presumably gets stronger. What's more is, I heard that as soon as the BRICS GDP rose above the G7's, the BRICS nations, you remember, Brazil, Russia, China and all of them, well, they quickly met to discuss reducing reliance on the US dollar by promoting de-dollarization. De-dollarization is a process by which a country reduces its reliance on the US dollar in its financial transactions and foreign reserves. It involves a shift away from the use of the US dollar as a means of exchange, store of value, and unit of account, and towards the use of other currencies, such as the euro, yen, or yuan, or even towards creating new regional or global currencies. De-dollarization can occur for various reasons, such as concerns over the volatility or inflationary pressures associated with the US dollar, efforts to reduce exposure to US economic sanctions or political pressure, or a desire to promote financial and economic independence. However, de-dollarization can also be a challenging process, as the US dollar remains the dominant global currency and is widely used in international trade and finance. In this specific case, I'm sorry to say while replacing the US dollar will have its challenges for China and the BRICS, it may seem as if it's smooth sailing for now. Let's start here. March 31, 2023, Bitcoin.com's Sergio Goshenko published this article that reads, China makes advances in ditching the US dollar for settlements, inks deal with Brazil and completes first yuan LNG purchase. The article starts by reading, China has been advancing its goal of positioning the yuan as an alternative to the US dollar for settling international payments. The Chinese government recently struck a bilateral deal with Brazil to settle trades using their national currencies and completed a purchase of liquefied natural gas (LNG) with a French company using yuan as payment. Then the article goes to this headline, China advances de-dollarization efforts with Brazil and France. The article basically reads this. China is positioning its fiat currency, the yuan, as a potential alternative to the US dollar for international settlements. The Chinese government has achieved 2 milestones towards this goal, signing a bilateral deal with Brazil allowing the two countries to settle payments with their national currencies, and completing the first LNG import trade settled in yuan. Analysts believe the full adoption of the yuan requires the implementation of new policies, including the introduction of a progressive tax on cross-border capital flows to guard against external risks. The proposed digital yuan central bank digital currency (CBDC) could give the yuan an edge compared to other currencies. South China Morning Post said, Brazil has begun to accept trade settlements and investments in yuan, with an agreement reached between central banks in February. AsiaFinancial.com says, China settles first LNG trade in yuan in latest hit to dollar. Australian news, news.com.au says. China and Brazil team up to ditch US dollar, promote bilateral trade. Now wait, there's more. I hear there are over 24 countries involved on this coordinated de-dollarization effort. Please contact me if you want to talk about these topics at all. You might get paid for your time. Stay tuned for more.